Before we continue, if this story is already giving you chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below telling me what you think is happening in that building. Okay, now let's see what that hidden camera recorded. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. It was 3:47 in the morning. The sleep study center was completely quiet except for the soft beeping of the monitors in the patient rooms. I was alone at the front desk, like always, and I was staring at something on my screen that made my stomach drop all the way to the floor. Room 4. Patient Gerald Thompson, 52 years old, came in for a routine sleep study because his wife said he stopped breathing in his sleep sometimes. Normal case. Nothing unusual about him at all, except right now. Gerald was sitting straight up in his bed, eyes wide open, mouth moving, and he was pointing directly at the camera in the corner of his room. But that is not what scared me. What scared me was the thing standing behind him. It was tall, too tall. Its head almost touched the ceiling. And the ceiling in those rooms is 9 feet high. It was dark, like a shadow that had learned how to stand up. It had no face that I could make out. Just a long, dark shape with arms that hung way too low, almost touching the floor. And it was standing completely still right behind Gerald, like it had been there the whole time, and I just never noticed. I blinked. I leaned closer to the screen. I told myself it was a glitch, a shadow from the equipment, anything to make it make sense. Then it turned its head and looked directly at the camera. I jumped back so hard my chair rolled into the wall behind me. My heart was hammering in my chest. I grabbed my radio to call security, and then I stopped, because every single monitor on my screen changed at the same time. All 8 rooms, all 8 patients. Every one of them was sitting up in their beds, eyes open, mouths moving, and every single one of them was pointing at their camera. I could not move. I could not speak. And whatever was standing behind Gerald in room 4 had not moved either. It was still staring at the camera, at me. Then the power went out. My name is Daniel Brooks. I am 26 years old, and 3 months ago, I took a night shift job at a sleep study center called Restwell Sleep Diagnostics in Columbus, Ohio. I needed the money. I had just moved into a new apartment. My car needed repairs, and my last job at a warehouse had laid off half the staff. The job posting said night monitoring technician, no medical degree required, just basic training provided. The pay was decent. The hours were midnight to 8 in the morning. I figured it would be quiet, easy, maybe even a little boring. I had no idea what I was walking into. The center was located inside a plain gray building on the edge of the city, surrounded by parking lots and a few sad-looking trees. From the outside, it looked like a dentist office or a small clinic. Inside, it had 8 patient rooms, a front monitoring desk, a small break room, a supply closet, and a locked office in the back that belonged to Dr. Margaret Voss, the director of the center. The rooms were designed to feel like hotel rooms. Soft lighting, comfortable beds, white walls. The idea was to make patients feel relaxed so they could sleep naturally while the equipment tracked everything. Brain waves, heart rate, breathing and movement, all of it recorded and analyzed. My job was simple. Sit at the front desk from midnight to 8. Watch the monitors. Make sure no patient stopped breathing, had a seizure, or needed help. If anything unusual happened, radio the on-call nurse, Linda Castillo, who slept in a small room at the end of the hall. Do not disturb the patients unless absolutely necessary. Keep the noise down. Fill out the nightly report forms. That was it. My first 2 weeks were exactly as boring as I expected. Patients came in, went to sleep, breathed, sometimes snored, and went home in the morning. Dr. Voss would come in at 7, review the overnight data, and nod at me on her way to her office. Linda was friendly but tired all the time. The other daytime staff were in and out quickly. Nobody really talked much. It was a quiet place that felt a little sad, the way medical buildings often do. The first time I noticed something strange was on a Tuesday night in my 3rd week. I had 4 patients that night. Room 1 was a woman named Patricia Yates, 61 years old, referred by her doctor for snoring and fatigue. Room 3 was a teenage boy named Marcus Webb, 16, whose parents were worried about his sleeping patterns. Room 5 was a retired teacher named Howard Finch, 70 years old, who had been having trouble sleeping for years. Room 7 was a middle-aged man named Carl Simmons, 44, who worked night shifts himself and had complained his sleep schedule was completely broken. Everything was normal until about 2 in the morning. That is when I noticed Patricia in room 1 had stopped moving, not in a dangerous way. The monitors showed she was breathing fine, but she was lying completely still, not the natural shifting and turning that sleeping people do. She was stiff, like a board, and her eyes were moving rapidly under her eyelids, way faster than normal REM sleep looks. I watched her for a few minutes, figured it was just a deep sleep phase, and went back to doing my report forms. Then at 2:15, Marcus in room 3 did the exact same thing, completely still, eyes racing under the lids. Then Howard in room 5 at 2:17. Then Carl in room 7 at 2:19. All 4 of them, one after another, going into the strange, rigid stillness within minutes of each other. I radioed Linda. She came out, looked at the monitors, told me the readings were all fine, nothing medically alarming, and went back to bed. She said sometimes patients sync up in sleep cycles, especially in a shared space. She said not to worry about it. I wrote it down in my personal notebook, not the official report, my own notebook that I had started keeping in my second week just because I liked writing things down. Old habit from college. In the morning, before the patients left, I was handing out the standard feedback forms at the front desk. It was something Dr. Voss required. Just basic questions. How did you sleep? Did you feel comfortable? Any unusual experiences during the night? That kind of thing. Patricia handed hers back and paused at the desk. She had a strange look on her face. Confused, but also a little frightened. She said she had a dream. She said it felt more real than any dream she had ever had in her life. She said she was standing in a long white hallway, and at the end of the hallway there was a tall, dark figure just standing there, not moving, just watching her. And she said in the dream she could not move her body at all. She could only watch it watching her. I smiled and thanked her and told her to have a good day. Then Marcus walked up and handed me his form. And before I could say anything, he said he also had a weird dream. A white hallway, a dark figure at the end. Could not move. The back of my neck went cold. Howard said the same thing when he handed in his form. A white hallway, something tall and dark, standing at the end. Could not look away from it. Carl did not say anything. He just handed me his form and walked out quickly, like he wanted to leave as fast as possible. I looked down at his feedback form. In the section that said any unusual experiences, he had written 4 words and underlined them twice. It was watching me. I stood at that front desk for a long time after they all left, holding those 4 feedback forms, reading them over and over, for different people, for different ages, for completely different lives. And they all had the exact same dream on the exact same night. I told myself it was a coincidence. I told myself Linda was right, and it was just some kind of shared sleep cycle thing with a common anxiety dream. Lots of people dream about paralysis. Lots of people dream about dark figures. It did not have to mean anything. I almost convinced myself. Then I went back to the monitoring desk to start shutting down the overnight equipment, and I saw that the recording from room 1, Patricia's room, had a gap in it. 47 seconds of footage. Right around 2 in the morning, just gone. Black screen, like something had interrupted the recording without triggering any of the system alerts. I checked room 3. Same gap. 2:13 to 2:15. Gone. Room 5. Room 7. All of them. Every room that had a patient that night had a gap in the recording. At exactly the time, I had noticed them going stiff. My hands were already cold when I opened the playback from room 1 right before the gap started. I wanted to see if there was anything unusual in the seconds before the recording cut out. There was. In the top left corner of the frame, half hidden in the shadows near the ceiling, was something I had not seen on the live feed the night before. A long dark shape, barely visible, like a tall figure crouched against the wall, keeping itself just out of light. And in the last frame before the recording went black, it had turned toward the camera. Chapter 2. The power came back on in exactly 43 seconds. I know because I counted. Standing there in the pitch-black monitoring room, heart slamming against my ribs, radio in one hand and the edge of the desk gripped in the other, I counted every single second out loud in a whisper just to keep myself from screaming. When the lights flickered back on and the monitors buzzed back to life, the first thing I did was look at room 4. Gerald Thompson was lying down again, eyes closed, breathing normally according to the monitor, like nothing had happened, like he had never been sitting up pointing at the camera, like whatever had been standing behind him had never existed at all. I checked every room on the screen. All 8 patients were still, calm, sleeping peacefully like people who had no idea their night technician was sitting 10 feet away with sweat running down the back of his neck and his hands shaking too bad to hold a pen. Then I looked at the recording playback to see what had happened during the blackout. Every single camera in the building had gone dark at the exact same second. All 8 rooms, the hallway camera, the front entrance camera, even the camera above the back exit, all of them cut out at 3:47 a.m. and came back at 3:48 a.m. and 30 seconds. 43 seconds of nothing. 43 seconds where I had no idea what was happening in any of those rooms with any of those patients. I radioed Linda. She came out looking half asleep, hair messy, scrubs wrinkled. She looked at the monitors, looked at me, and said the power probably just flickered. Old building, she said. It happens sometimes in winter. She asked if all the patients were okay. I said yes. She said good, right in the report, and went back to her room. I sat there staring at the screen for the rest of the night and did not look away from those monitors for a single second until the sun came up. In the morning, I checked every feedback form of my hands trembling under the desk so none of the daytime staff could see. All 8 patients had written the same thing. White hallway, tall, dark figure at the end. Could not move. It was watching me. Every single one of them. Word for word, almost identical. 8 different people ranging from 19 years old to 67. Different races, different backgrounds, different reasons for being there. And they all had the same dream during the same 43 seconds that every camera in the building went completely dark. I did not tell Linda. I did not tell Dr. Voss. I took those feedback forms to the copy machine in the break room, made copies of all of them, folded the copies up, and put them in my jacket pocket. Then I put the originals back in the filing tray like nothing had happened. That night, I went home and sat at my kitchen table and spread all the copies out in front of me and just stared at them for a long time. I had been keeping my notebook since week 2. I opened it and started writing down everything. The synced sleep events for my 3rd week, the recording gaps, the figure in the corner of room 1, the identical dreams, the power outage, the 43 seconds. All of it in one long list that covered 3 full pages. When I was done, I sat back and read it all from the beginning. Something was happening in that building. Something that followed a pattern. And whatever it was connected to the patients being asleep. I thought about quitting. I genuinely sat there at that kitchen table at 11 in the morning and thought about calling Dr. Voss and telling her I was done. I had enough in my savings to cover 1 month of rent. I could find something else. Plenty of places were hiring. But I kept thinking about those 8 people. Gerald Thompson with his wife, who worried about his breathing. Patricia Yates, who had handed me her form with that frightened, confused look. Marcus Webb, who was just a 16-year-old kid whose parents wanted him to sleep better. They did not know what was happening in those rooms at night. They came in thinking they were going to help, and they were leaving having shared a nightmare with 7 strangers about something tall and dark that watched them and would not let them move. I went back the next night. For 2 weeks after that, nothing unusual happened. Patients came and went. The recordings were clean. No gaps, no figures in the corners, no power outages. The feedback forms were normal. Some people slept well. Some did not. A few mentioned feeling slightly anxious during the night, which was common in a medical setting. Nothing that matched what I had seen and documented. I started to wonder if I had let my imagination take over. If the figure in the recording had been a shadow from the equipment, and my tired brain had turned it into something terrifying, because I was already spooked by the sync sleep events. 43 seconds of power outage in an old building in winter was not that strange. 8 people having similar anxiety dreams about paralysis and dark figures was unsettling, but not impossible. I almost convinced myself again. I was getting good at almost convincing myself. Then Dr. Voss called me into her office. It was a Thursday morning, about 7:30, just before my shift ended. She had never called me in before. In 3 months of working there, she had nodded at me exactly once per morning, and that was the full extent of our relationship. So when Linda knocked on the break room door while I was finishing my coffee and said Dr. Voss wanted to see me, my stomach immediately dropped. Her office was neat in a way that made you feel like every single object in it had been placed with careful intention. Degrees on the wall, a large desk, stacks of folders organized by color, a small window with the blinds mostly closed. She was a tall woman, maybe 55, with short silver hair and reading glasses that she wore pushed up on her forehead like she kept forgetting they were there. She gestured to the chair across from her desk, and I sat down. She asked me how I was settling in. I said fine. She asked if I had any questions or concerns about the role. I said no. She nodded slowly like she was deciding something. Then she said she had noticed I had been making copies of the patient feedback forms. The copy machine logs every job. I had not thought about that. I felt my face go hot, and I started to explain, but she held up one hand and stopped me. She said she was not angry. She said she understood why I had done it. And then she said something that knocked the air right out of me. She said she had been noticing the same things I had been noticing for almost 2 years. I stared at her. She opened the bottom drawer of her desk and pulled out a thick folder, the kind that expands like an accordion, stuffed so full the edges were bent. She put it on the desk between us and opened it. Inside were hundreds of feedback forms, dozens of printed screenshot images from the monitoring cameras, handwritten notes on yellow legal paper, and a separate stack of papers that looked like medical records with certain sections highlighted in yellow. She spread a few of the camera screenshots on the desk facing me. Different rooms, different dates going back almost 2 years. And in almost every single one, in corners and doorways and shadows near the ceilings, were shapes. Long, dark shapes that did not match any of the equipment in the rooms. My mouth went dry. She told me she had contacted the building security company twice about the camera gaps. They had checked the system both times and found nothing wrong with the hardware or the software. She had called the power company about the outages. They had no record of any disruption to the building on any of the nights she reported. She had consulted 2 colleagues at other sleep centers in the state about the synchronized sleep events and the identical dreams. Both of them had told her it was an interesting anomaly, but not medically significant. Neither of them had believed her when she pushed further. She had been sitting on all of this alone for 22 months. I asked her why she had not shut the center down. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said she had come close. Twice. But both times something had stopped her. She said she had started to believe that whatever was happening in this building was not random. It had a pattern. It was doing something specific to the patients while they slept. And if she shut the center down, she would lose the only place where she could observe it and try to understand it. She looked at me very carefully when she said the next part. She said 3 weeks ago she had started reviewing the long-term health records of former patients, specifically ones who had stayed overnight multiple times. And she had found something that none of the other doctors had flagged because they were each only looking at individual cases and not comparing them side by side. Every patient who had visited Restwell Sleep Diagnostics more than 3 times in the past 2 years had reported the same thing to their regular doctors within 60 days of their last visit: sleep disruption, vivid recurring nightmares, an inability to feel fully rested no matter how many hours they slept. And in 4 cases, something worse. She slid a single sheet of paper across the desk to me. 4 names for former patients. And next to each name, a date. The date each of them had been admitted to a psychiatric facility. All 4 had said the same thing to their doctors before being admitted. They said something was in their house at night, standing in the corner of their bedroom, watching them sleep. The same thing that had been standing behind Gerald Thompson in room 4 on the night the power went out. I looked up from the paper. Dr. Voss was watching me with the steady expression of someone who had been carrying something unbearably heavy for a very long time and had finally found someone to help hold it. She said she needed my help monitoring a specific patient who was scheduled to come the following Monday, a woman named Donna Reyes, 48 years old, visiting for the 4th time. She said she wanted a second set of eyes on the footage in real time. She said she had set up an additional hidden camera in room 3 that ran on a completely separate power source, so that if the main system went dark again, that camera would keep recording. She said she believed that Monday night they were finally going to see exactly what was happening to her patients. I should have said no. Every reasonable part of my brain was telling me to stand up, walk out of that office, go home, pack a bag, and drive somewhere far away from Columbus, Ohio, and never think about Restwell Sleep Diagnostics again. Instead, I heard myself say yes. Monday came faster than I wanted it to. Donna Reyes checked in at 9 p.m. She was a small, quiet woman with dark circles under her eyes, so deep they looked like bruises. She smiled at the front desk and signed her forms and said she was really hoping this visit would finally help her sleep better. She said she had not had a full night of rest in months. She said the dreams had been getting worse. I watched her walk down the hallway to room 3, and I felt something cold move through my chest that had nothing to do with the temperature in the building. At exactly 2 in the morning, Donna Reyes went completely rigid in her bed. Dr. Voss was sitting right next to me at the monitoring desk. We both saw at the same time. Donna flat on her back, arms straight at her sides, eyes racing under her eyelids at a speed that did not look human. And on every other monitor, every other patient in the building doing the exact same thing within 30 seconds of each other. Dr. Voss pulled up the hidden camera feed on her personal laptop, the one running on the separate power source, the one that would keep recording even if everything else went dark. For 10 seconds, the room looked completely normal. Donna, lying still in the bed. White walls. Soft light from the equipment. Then something stepped out of the wall. Not through a door. Not from a corner. It came directly out of the wall itself, like the wall was made of water and it was just walking through it. Tall. Dark. That same long arm shape I had seen in the recording from room 1. It moved to the side of Donna's bed and stood over her and lowered its head toward her face. Dr. Voss grabbed my arm. So hard it hurt. The main power went out, but the laptop kept recording. And in the blue glow of that screen, in the footage from the hidden camera that nothing in that building could shut down, we watched it do something to Donna Reyes that made Dr. Voss make a sound I had never heard come from a human being before.